everyone, and welcome to a fresh episode of ET Auto The Month Gone By in Automotive Industry, a series where we bring to you the latest trends, key insights, and highlights from the last month of June 2024. But before we begin, let's catch up on some numbers. For passenger vehicles, industry estimates suggest dispatches in the domestic market during June 2024 were at 3.40 lakh units, when compared to 3.28 lakh units in June last year. This marks a growth of about 4%. And when compared to May 2024, passenger vehicle dispatches in June reported a month-on-month drop. To understand more on the why and how of things, I would like to call in Mr. Puneet Gupta, who's the Director of Automotive Sales Forecast, India and ASEAN, S&P Global Mobility. Mr. Gupta, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me and glad to be a part of this video series.
So looking at the OEM-wise dispatches for the month, we have seen a marginal growth for the top two OEMs, Maruti and Hyundai. For Tata Motors, dispatches have dropped by about 8%. On the other hand, OEMs like Mahindra and Toyota have shown a double-digit growth. And then again, OEMs like Renault, Skoda, Citroën struggled with a double-digit negative. So it's like a mixed bag within the passenger vehicle segment itself. So help us understand here the factors and, give us the reasons as to why things are moving at a different pace for all the OEMs.
Yes. So I think first thing, it's very clear that India new car sales, it's losing its shine. And I think you said that the market have, just grown by 4%. And actually, if I dig it and if I do if I say a punch avlokam, which means 5 observations, so it's out of the top 15 car manufacturers today, almost 8 to 9 car manufacturers have shown degrowth, right? And if I actually talk about top 6 months, first 6 months of this year, so out of 6 months, 5 months, the wholesale is more than retail, right? So it's very clear that the dealer inventory is going up, and which is actually in a way putting pressure on a lot of dealers. And that is why we are seeing, discounting inching up. So now every OEM has a different reason, right? So, but broadly, if I say what we can really see is that conversion rates, almost at across OEMs are less, and maybe one of the reasons is maybe we can partly say it's because of the monsoons in some part of the country, maybe because of the heat wave in some part of the country, but primarily, if we see. One thing which we see across every OEM is that customers are not in hurry to close the deal, because earlier there was a booking, right, and everybody wanted to close the deal. But now customers are prolonging it, considering that there may be more discounts, on the way. But yes, there are OEMs like Toyota, like Mahindra and Mahindra, which are still enjoying the pent-up demand, for their models. And that is why we see, they're really going phenomenally by somewhere around, let us say 40% for Toyota and roughly almost more than 20% for Mahindra. So clearly there are OEMs who are enjoying, but I think pent-up demand is almost, close to over for most of the OEMs. And I think, but again, one thing which we really need to see is that price elasticity is playing its role now, because prices are very high and obviously customer needs some time to really to get on, to these high prices, or maybe looking for more discount. So I think overall elections was also one of the key periods because the money flow was stuck, but I think as we move forward, we may see some improvement, coming on the ground.
Right. Two major things you mentioned. One was the inventory, the increase in stocks in the dealership, and second is the discounts. So just to quickly touch upon these, like inventory, we have since the last month, we have been hearing about this. So as of June end, is it still a concern or has it reduced comparatively, since the last month? And second, about the discounts, are they going to increase further moving on, or this is the highest that we're going to see as of this quarter, probably the new quarter?
So first, for inventory, I think it has gone up. So clearly we are above 55 days of inventory in the network now, which is very high. Considering that in last 3 years, most of the dealers have been, used to somewhere around 20 to 30 days of inventory. So obviously that is putting pressure. But second thing in terms of discounting, right? So discounting is not common across the segments. Like we see more discounts on hatchback and sedans, whereas on SUVs, you clearly don't see discounts. And moreover, if you see last 3 years, 21 onwards, so discounting have been in the average of 1.5% of average selling price. But now in the month of June, as per our estimates, the discounting have gone up to 4% of average selling price, which is reasonably very high. And considering that most of this discounting is coming from dealers, it's not coming much from OEM. So obviously, from the customer perspective, obviously, it's always dil mange more in India, right? So you always want more discounts on your car. But I think still we have July, so still we see, July as a month which will where dealers or OEMs have to still nose their grind, right? So they have to really put in hard effort. One thing which I always is saying now, that now the sales is just natural demand. It is not natural demand plus pent-up demand, because pent-up demand days are over. So everybody in the ecosystem, it may be dealers, suppliers, OEMs, so we have to think like what we were thinking way back in 2019, and we have to put our effort accordingly to convince the customer and close the deals, because pent-up demand is no more there for almost more than 90% OEMs.
Got it. Got it. So here I would like to loop in Mr. Amit Garg, who's the managing director of Shiva Motocorp, which runs automobile dealerships for OEMs like Mahindra, Bajaj, and JLR. I see you, Mr. Garg. I see you smiling here. Tell me, do you agree with Mr. Puneet on the discounting part, or like how do we expect that coming from the dealers going forward?
Shubhangi, thank you very much, first of all, for inviting me, ET Auto, for this forum. Yeah, what he's saying is quite correct, but I'm the lucky one who is running the dealership for Mahindra and Mahindra and Jaguar and Land Rover. So these are the two manufacturers which are doing really very well, and the pent-up demand is there. In my view, Shubhangi, the automobile industry always experienced a downturn in last month due to extreme heat, which discouraged people from leaving their home. First, number one. Many traveling for vacations, number two, and ongoing state elections, the funds were blocked, and the rural population normally, are into the elections quite a lot. So the buying decisions are late whenever their elections are there, normally for the automobile retail. Additionally, as per seasonality trends observed over the past several years, first quarter of every year typically sees a decline in sales. Because of the same reasons, the heat, people go for vacations, and the rain starts. So June is always after a high peak quarter 4. June, July, August are normally at this quarter always goes little down. So as per the seasonality, that's okay. But yes, there are models from Mahindra and Mahindra and Toyota, which are high in demand because of their cutting-edge features, advanced technology, and competitive pricing. They have continued to perform well in the market, and the pent-up demand is still very high. If we get those models still in good numbers, we can sell in good amount. So what he's saying and what the market is absolutely correct, and I foresee June is traditionally very low. Then the things start improving from July, August, September, October, November onwards. So because now the people will come back, the heat is not that much, now it's bearable. The rains have started everywhere across the country. People will come out, settle down from the vacations and everything. They will start coming out. They will come to the showroom for buying decision and for making their minds for the Diwali and the festival period also.
Okay. And coming to the two-wheeler segment, tell us about the demand for two-wheelers during the last month. We have seen the dispatches for almost all the OEMs were in green. But tell me, are the retails following this trend or are they behind?
Retails were less last month because of, again, I will say that two-wheeler is a segment which has gone a very bad phase after COVID. Now, because the rural income wasn't able to come at the same level as pre-COVID levels, whatever. But now the demands, last year it was good for the two-wheeler industry, especially for the Bajaj for which I am selling the Bajaj vehicles. I have the dealership of Bajaj products, and the demands have increased. But last month, because of extreme heat and because of elections in the rural part of India, it was low. But again, from this month onwards, it will pick up. But the pace which will the two-wheeler will pick up will not be the same as before.
Okay, okay. So moving on, one important discussion topic for the industry has been the electric vehicles. And here I would like to take inputs from Mr. Kaushik Madhavan, who's the Vice President and Head of Consulting Automotive at Markets and Markets. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Madhavan. Tell us, how is the confidence on EV sales, specifically for the two-wheelers? I ask this because for the month of June, we have seen sales drastically dropping for almost all the electric two-wheeler makers. I mean, while 1 month may not be the best time frame to understand the trend, but do you think this drop could follow a similar pattern going forward, or is it just like a temporary phase here because of the subsidies that have been stocked up?
Thank you very much, Shubhangi, for having me. Largely, I do echo the positive sentiment, and the optimism which Puneet and Amit have already shared and highlighted earlier. Now, if you look at, maybe I'll touch upon, two angles here. The first one is more from the, let's say, two-wheelers and let's say the electric three-wheelers perspective as well, right? Which are essentially, for let's say last mile mobility applications, up-country, rural market applications for personal mobility and so on. Now, I think what's very important going forward is if you look at how the OEMs are offering these electric two-wheelers and three-wheelers now is to look at some of the asset-light business models, right? Gone are the days of, outright purchase and ownership, right? Today, you are looking at multiple asset-light business models like subscription-based acquisition. I'm choosing my words very carefully. I'm talking about product acquisition, not product purchase, right? So you need to acquire a product and use it, right? Not necessarily purchase it. So we are talking about, subscription, short-term leasing, decoupling of batteries from the vehicle itself, which drastically reduces the acquisition price, right? You're reducing, the price by 40-45% simply because you're decoupling the battery cost. So I think that is actually driving adoption rates in many, many ways. I'm sure Amit understands this very well from a customer connect perspective. I think for me, I'm pretty optimistic that the downward trend that we saw is going to be a very, very temporary affair, right? I'm quite confident that we will bounce back. And the second part on passenger cars is about, let's say, how the FAME 3 discussion is happening, right? Obviously, we are too early to see what the actual framework will be, but there is speculation. There are discussions that maybe hybrids will be part of FAME 3 this time, right? We still don't know yet. And on the counter side is that, there are discussions that and speculation that electric vehicles may not be part of FAME 3. We'll wait and watch. But for me, personally, the most positive thing is that we need to have hybrids as part of FAME 3, right? I'm talking about full hybrids, right? Not micro or mild, but full hybrids, which actually help customers gain a lot more significant fuel economy than their IC engine counterparts. If that happens, I think it will build a lot of customer, confidence, and it'll lead to positive sentiment. So these are the 2 points that I'm very, very keen to see how they will develop over the next couple of months.
Yeah, that would be interesting to see. But with the global sales of EVs dropping down, do you see this same trend to follow in India as well?
No, I don't think so. Because if you look at the way we look at the next, let's say, a couple of quarters, right? We see a lot of investments, from the non-banking financial corporations and microfinance institutions, right? NBFCs and MFIs, which are beginning to understand the need for electric two-wheeler, three-wheeler, and even light commercial vehicle adoption, electric light commercial vehicle adoption in rural markets, right? Which is why they are actually starting to offer financial instruments or loans at attractive rates, attractive return policies, and so on. So that is going to be one of the key drivers for non-metro and upcountry electrification in India. That's the first one. The second one is, this is probably a little of a long-term trend, which is establishment of what we call as centers of excellence, or COEs, as we call it, right? By the OEMs, tier one suppliers on battery technologies, motor technologies, and so on. So, in the larger scheme of, Atmanirbhar Bharat and, qualification for PLI schemes, I think these are very, very positive trends that we see more and more local players investing in manufacturing and developing competencies and capabilities in India. That, I believe, is going to be a very, very strong driver for the growth of electrification, let's say primarily from the passenger car, light commercial vehicle, and even electric bus segments as well. So these are the two trends that I see that are going to be very relevant to India, very India specific, which is NBFCs and MFIs and centers of excellence being developed and invested in from an India context. So I think those are the 2 points that I'd like to highlight.
Yeah, got it. Thanks for that insight. Now, to the last segment of this episode, I'll come back to you, Mr. Gupta. Tell us, what is your outlook for the next few months, probably this quarter that we have just entered, the July, August, and September, with monsoon in different parts of the country and festive season later on. What are the 2 growth drivers and 2 challenges that you see for the passenger vehicle industry?
There would be monsoons across the country, and if we see seasonality, so obviously July is a month again, which is considered as a low month. And obviously, generally we have seen the pickup and the OEMs also start pushing and dealers start ordering somewhere around August, right? So that they can really get themselves prepared for festivals, which is Onam starting or Ganesh Chaturthi starting from first week of September. So obviously, from August onwards, we may see some kind of momentum being again built up, and we may see things or building blocks in place, for the economy as well. A lot of things would be clear, but I think currently seeing that the government is stable, the policy direction is there may be more incentives. So obviously, after July, we may see again the industry picking up, and overall for calendar year 2024, we expect the markets to be close at somewhere around 5.5% for passenger cars, which is reasonably good, considering that even if we see year till date numbers, so we are roughly around 7%. But obviously for the whole year, there may be, and July is still a month, where we may not see very good sales. But overall, I think the scenario is good. There is euphoria all around. There are a lot of drivers, so if I talk about top 2 drivers, which I consider, so one is rural markets, where we can see a lot of, money inflow has been there because of elections. So we may see typically, tier 3, tier 4 cities coming up. And then in tier 1, tier 2 cities or metros, it can be the replacement demand, because again, we have always seen, that people are just looking for discounts. And maybe by August, September, we may see car manufacturers, obviously adapting themselves, to the new norm.
Right, got it. I'll come to you, Mr. Garg. How do you see the entire year for the rural sales? Do you what is your expectation of two-wheeler retail sales for the entire year?
Looking ahead, growth is expected to increase due to upcoming festive season also, because and the preparations will undergo for the festive seasons from August onwards, September onwards. So the sales will bound to increase this year, and I have a great hope and great, the Bajaj Auto is launching a CNG bike in just July or June 5th. It's launching a CNG bike soon. CNG in bikes will give a very good mileage. I think if the CNG bikes comes into the picture in two-wheeler also, I think that it will be a game changer. So now manufacturers has to think the cutting edge technology, how they can outperform others in terms of product features, product technology, product pricing. Those manufacturers will continue to do well, as you can see in four-wheelers also. So what I personally feel that two-wheeler will increase because the elections has just over, and now the monsoons also looks great. The way the rains are happening, so rural economy and then again the farmers and everybody in the rural economy will have a good crop and everything. So I don't see in future, and the government is stable now again, I don't see anything in the future that will stop the growth of automobile further ahead. It's a temporary thing. The first quarter is always down. Then from the first quarter end, the momentum start building up, and then it continues till March. Then again, the first quarter is down. So I don't see anything wrong in the future for the growth of two-wheeler as well as four-wheelers.
All right. So before we go, Mr. Madhavan, help us understand the kind of trends that can be expected in the commercial vehicle space per se, in the near term, maybe in the next 1, 2, or 3 years, probably.
Excellent question there, Shubhangi. So I think the next, let's say, 12 to 24 months are going to be very crucial for, I would say, 3 vehicle segments, right? The first one, exactly like you mentioned, the electric light commercial vehicle segment, right? Or the ELCV segment. We have seen the success of, the Tata Ace Electric or even the Ashok Leyland Dost platform, which is the electric version, right? Now, this segment is going to be very crucial for especially your e-commerce players, fleet operators, last mile connectivity players. So the ELCV segment is the top segment to look out for. The second segment is the electric three-wheeler segment, right? Again, both L3 and L5, passenger transportation and goods transportation. We see that a lot of these electric three-wheelers, especially goods transport three-wheelers, are being used not only by some of the larger fleet operators and e-commerce players, but also by, let's say, the electric mobility as a service players. Classic example is Magenta Mobility, right? They are investing and acquiring electric three-wheelers to offer mobility service and mobility solutions as a whole. So electric three-wheelers is the second most important segment. The third one is obviously the passenger car segment, right? From a product features point of view, the next 12 to 24 months, we will see a host of new features being added from a comfort convenience perspective, all your cockpit infotainment systems, ADAS, driver assistance systems, autonomous driving features, not completely autonomous driving vehicles, and most importantly, electric vehicles as well and hybrids too. So I think these are the 3 vehicle segments to watch out for the next 12 to 24 months. We will see a lot more product introductions, new features, and most importantly, like I said, I think Amit mentioned this as well, better value in terms of the product and feature itself. That is what the customer is looking for. So that is what I would say are the top 3 vehicle segments of my choice.
Right. Okay. All right. Then with that, we come to the end of this episode. Thank you everyone for joining us today. And thanks to the panelists for giving us some very insightful and interesting updates.